Welcome to Passing Time with Craig. As always, I'm your host, Craig, and love passing time with this person. I'm very excited. First time on the podcast. Please welcome Eric.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. First time guest, long time listener.
Well, I wanted you on my original podcast.
Right.
That was forever ago. We met. The first time we met was I was a guest star for Dirty Laundry.
Yeah. Years and years ago.
Years ago. And we discussed it. You were super cool. You were very nice to me because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I'll let you know that most of the time in improv, no one really knows what they're doing.
Which works out well for me.
Yes.
And so then, we got chatting and I was like, oh, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And then something happened with the world.
Yeah, but I think even before then, our paths had crossed
Yeah.
a little bit, even while the world kind of, something happened in the world.
Yeah.
Because we were in like the beer industry together as well. Yeah.
It's been like just in and out all the time for the past few, I don't know how many years, I don't want to say.
Yeah. No, don't age us.
No,
Don't age us.
and then, so you are like just a freaking talented human.
Stop.
And I hate you because just every time I'm like, there's something wrong with him. There must be.
I don't. Those are things I don't say on podcasts.
Yeah. We're gonna get into it.
No, we're not. We're not getting in there.
I don't care if this is a 7-hour podcast.
Oh no, I'm really into birds. That's what's wrong with me.
All right, that's not bad.
Okay, good.
But so I've also had you come to Born and sing. Like you're an actor and a singer, and just what? The question is, what?
The answer is why.
Yeah. Well, like, when did you decide that creativity was going to be something that you were gonna, I feel like we're creative as kids and we're use our imagination with playing games, but then when did that continue to you that you went to Grant McEwen theater art program?
Yeah.
You graduated from that. So like you've actually put the effort in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I realized it was the only thing I was kind of good at at a young age, like either being goofy or being the center of attention, class clown, all of that. But I mean, when I had my courses laid out in front of me in high school, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Hilariously, it was like, I'm going to be an actor. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to be a musician. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to be a welder. Left field. I know, completely different. Trades was always something I was kind of interested in. I like building stuff using my hands.
Yeah.
And I kind of like zoomed through the welding courses of my high school. Like I finished my grade 12 welding curriculum at the start of grade 11. I was like, okay, I got all the credits for it. And I was like, this is an option for me?
Yeah.
Like I really, really enjoyed metalwork. And then later in my life, I kind of enjoyed woodwork and working with like renovation companies and things like that. But the acting thing I was like, okay, I'm going to school. So I got into musical theater school. Yeah. The Grant McEwen Theater Arts program. Here's dating myself back in 2007. And that's kind of what spurred it, really.
Yeah.
Like I did a lot of theater in high school and junior high. I had a really, really good teacher in junior high. I go like, you are being a little bit of a shit. Have you thought about going into theater? And at the time, I didn't really want to perform at that point.
Right.
He was like, well, come and be a tech. So like I just worked behind the scenes, and I think I teched one show in junior high because it was a fairly drama forward school that I went to. And then after that I was like, well, I can do what all those kids are doing. And then auditioned for the next show, and then I was Gilligan in Gilligan's Island in grade 8. Oh, there's photos out there. Don't ask my parents.
I need to see this. I love Gilligan's Island.
Oh yeah?
I don't know why. Like people, again, I'm only like 33, but for some reason, Gilligan's Island and The Brady Bunch are two of my favorite shows of all time.
Interesting. Is it the nostalgia factor?
I don't know what it is. I just know that when we were kids, they were on TV once.
Right.
Like this was when reruns especially during the daytime, like we still didn't have that huge catalog of television.
Yeah.
So they just were on, and I just loved TV as a kid, and there was just something about the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island that I just love. And Gilligan's Island's so ridiculous.
It's goofy. I did some research and watched some Gilligan's Island back in the day, and was like, oh yeah, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, like the adventures that they got on the island, and it's like, so that kind of like spurred everything for me. And then after that, it just kind of every year I went into a different I auditioned for different shows, and then in grade 12 I was like, my older sister was in Grant MacEwan for her first year, and then she was like, it's really good. I auditioned for the National Theatre School right out of high school and didn't get in, and I was a bit bummed, so I had my other options out. I was like, well, I guess I'll go to Grant MacEwan because my sister's there, and got into Grant MacEwan, which is like strictly like musical theatre school. Like, that's what it is, a musical theatre school. And I didn't really think I wanted to do musical theater. I never really sang before college. So it was like, okay, I guess this is the kind of thing I'm going to do. And that just kind of spurred it. When I was in high school too, I started playing instruments because all my friends played guitar. So that's kind of where the music stuff sort of happened. But ultimately it did help me get into musical theater school.
Yeah.
So.
And you're crushing it. I've seen you in 2 musical theater numbers now.
Which ones?
Because I saw you at Naughty But Nice.
Oh, yeah.
This year, and then last year was the Christmas one at Lunchbox.
Oh, Home for the Holidays.
Home for the Holidays.
Yeah.
I only go see Christmas musicals, clearly.
I was like, okay, there's other musicals that happen in this city, Craig.
No, it's just Christmas. I do want to go see more. I never find the time, but I love Christmas. And
this I know about you.
Yes, and I love you, so I was like, this seems like a match made in heaven.
I mean, those were both really fun Christmas time musicals,
yeah.
So like they're good shows.
I brought my cousin with me to Naughty But Nice, and she friggin' loved it. She was like, "Oh my god, this is so good!"
and sadly, like that's the last year.
It is the last year. How was that to be in the last year?
It was good. I'm glad I did it. I'd been asked in the past to do it. I've worked with Forte over the Forte Musical Theatre, the ones who produced Naughty But Nice. I've been working with them since 2012.
Wow.
And every year something kind of happens in that time frame where like that's a year with a lot of gigs happen, right? So in the before times, lots of theater was happening. I was always doing shows, and I've been asked to do it, but it never really lined up for me. And then this year, Joe, the artistic director of Forte Musical Theatre Guild, he asked me to come in and do it. And I was like, yeah, I guess. And he's like, it's the last year. I was like, okay, let's do it.
This is my only chance.
This is my first and last chance to do it, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, and what a fun show to be a part of. It is a little naughty, it is a little nice, but it is an absolute musical theater workout.
Yeah.
Talk to anybody who has done Naughty But Nice. It's like 90 minutes, no intermission. You're singing every song. You are in every number. You have solos. You have your backup. You're dancing. You're mad dashing to the back to costume change, and it's just by the end of it, you're like, we did it. What happened? It was like a 90-minute, like nonstop kind of blackout period.
Oh yeah, like I couldn't believe it. Like I was exhausted just watching it, but it was so much fun, and you had a great musical number about Die Hard.
yes, and you're a fan of the Die Hard.
Yeah.
It was my favorite song to sing in that show because it was so ridiculous.
Oh, so ridiculous.
Dan Parrott is the writer. He's a Calgary-based writer, and he writes a lot of songs for the kind of musical reviews that Forte does.
Yep.
I've done Lest We Forget, which was like a Remembrance Day one at Lunchbox a number of years ago, and Touch Me, songs for a disconnected age. And those were both fairly flushed out with a lot of Dan's music, and he has his finger on the pulse when it comes to like more pop culture style writing, and he writes beautiful music by itself, but also on top of that, hilarious music. And getting to be in that number was the best.
I was also dying. I couldn't control myself when it came to the musical number of you and your coworker's Secret Santa.
Oh yeah, the little love story.
The little love story, because it's so like sweet and beautiful, and it also was about 2 men, which I was like a huge fan of. but it was also so ridiculous because you both were just creeps.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, this is such a sweet song. Dan also wrote that song,
Yeah.
so props to Dan Parrott. Check him out. But yeah, like it was super sweet. You're like, oh, these people are in love. They have a little secret Santa, but then they both stalked each other, went into each other's houses, and found out that they both liked the same thing. Yeah, it got a little weird, stalker vibes, but in a sweet way.
I would love to revisit those characters to see
Where they are now.
where they are now.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably doing okay.
Yeah.
I think they're doing okay. Or maybe they just had a fling and then they're no longer together.
Also possible.
Yeah. They love Celine Dion.
Yeah. Now, you were also, I feel like a big part of 2023 for you, you were in another production, also exploring queer themes. Mm-hmm. You were up in Edmonton for that one?
So this show was called The Hooves Belong to the Deer.
Right.
I'd been with the project for like 2 years up until this point. I got an ask during the pandemic, in the time where we were trying to do art and do theater, and it was all on Zoom. And so I did like a Zoom workshop of this play. My friend and colleague and absolutely amazing director, Peter Hinton, he asked me to come on board as a recommendation from a friend to read for this workshop of this big kind of queer epic play written by Macram Ash. And I just kind of came on, did the workshop, didn't really think anything of it, but made an impression with Macram, who's the writer and also was playing the main character. And then I think maybe half a year later, we did another workshop that went into podcast, or like a radio version of the show with Buddies in Bad Times Theatre out of Toronto. They're a queer-based theatre. I think they're the oldest queer-based theatre company in Canada, in the world.
Whoa.
Yeah, they've been around a long time.
Yeah.
So they produced this radio version of this show. And then from there, we took it to Tarragon Theatre in Toronto almost this time last year. Yeah, I was there for March and April of 2023. And then we did it again in October of 2023, October and November in Edmonton.
So what was that experience like for you? Because usually with theater, it's you're rehearsing for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, depending on how, like, what goes into it, if it's a musical, and then you perform for a couple weeks, maybe a month if you're lucky, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But to have a character that's been a part of you for a couple years now, what was that like for you?
It's unbelievably special. I to this day, it's one of the more, it's that show, that character that I played in that show, sits very, very close to my heart. Like, in my mind, in my CV of shows that I've done, to this day, that's one of the more important pieces of work I've ever been a part of. To be with a character for 2 years, that's a new thing too, because you, of course, like, you do your shows, you finish your theater contract, and then you're like, okay, I'm done, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And when theater was abundant and there was a ton of shows going on, you would just go to the next thing, and you were like, all right, new thing, here we go. And it was always just kind of like the next thing. This one, kind of knowing that the next thing was another time to dive into the play, was really, really special. And Macram, who's become such a beautiful close friend of mine, as the writer, and then also played opposite of me as my partner in the show. He wrote a large part of the character of Will, the character I played, Will, around me, which is super special.
Wow.
That's a feeling that you don't really get in a lot of theater, because you're an actor, you audition for a part, you get to play that part that's been played by so many other people, but this was a world premiere.
Yeah.
And that character of Will was never really a musician, became more of a musician because I was a musician. And a lot of the character and the nuance and my personality came out in that character. So I do feel very, very close to that character of Will. But it is a special thing having it live in your body for 2 years. It was a lot to leave it.
Yeah.
At the end of October, we kind of felt like we did it. We did the show, But man, I really felt like it was a loss. There was a grief at the end of that, because I'd been with that character for so long, especially over the pandemic, where you're sitting at home, not really thinking about much, not doing a lot of theater. And then you get to embody this character in this beautiful written world. And to be done with that, it was a shock. It was really, really hard. And then going to Naughty But Nice right after.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful... I really connect with that character of Will. To that level of queer theater being brought to Alberta. It was set in Alberta. I don't think it's done here enough. As a queer artist, I really felt connected to the piece, but I also feel like I was representing, queer Albertans doing queer art, and I'm like, yes, here we go.
Which is so important. And I feel like my podcasts lately have been talking about why it's important that we use our queer voices in Alberta. But it's not something that is as broadcast or shown in Alberta, even in the theater world, where everyone's mind immediately goes, oh, but the theater world's so open and queer and everything. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the stories are being shown.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with, the fact that, theaters are struggling, and the risk of doing something that may offend or may not, land with someone.
Yeah.
And the loss of potential subscribers or the loss of audience members because of doing a show that doesn't connect with an audience. Or a percentage of the audience. I don't want to say all audiences, because our show connected with so many humans. I feel like that's the fear, and especially not-for-profit theater, where there's boards, there's directors, there's managers, there's so many people above the actual art, creating that art, that there's so many voices that make sure that everyone's happy and that people still keep coming to theater, because that's a fear that people won't come to theater because they had a bad theater experience. Yeah.
And it always sucks when people, it's just with anything in life. If you just have that one bad experience with the theater or the restaurant or the brewery or the store, to never give it another chance. I always talk about, we talked about the beer scene. We love craft beer. I love going to a brewery the first week or two that they're open, making an opinion, but then going back about 6 to 8 months later. Because if they haven't changed, if their beers are still crappy, because I give them that lenient, that first.
Yeah, you gotta stumble a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I go back and I find that the beers haven't changed, they don't seem to be listening to anybody, or the service and management's still crappy, then that's when I'm like, all right, this is my second time. I'm not gonna rush out to go this. And if it's a year down the line and someone's like, do you want to go check out this place? I'm like, sure, I haven't had the best time, but let me see it.
Let's try it out one more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, my partner and I have a thing where it's just we'll try anything twice.
Yeah.
Because you have to. That first time could be, your circumstances that first time could be one thing, and then you were having a bad day, so everything was bad.
Yeah. Or you go to this theater company that you haven't gone to before, and maybe they didn't get a great volunteer usher that caused a bad experience, or they got crappy seats because they didn't know how it was gonna be, and they didn't get to see or hear perfectly.
Resonate with the stories that were on the stage, and that's the constant struggle, is because theaters are working so hard to create art, beautiful art in our city, with amazing artists. Everyone from backstage to on stage to lighting designers, everyone in this city is full of magnificent art.
Yeah.
And it's sad when people go to see it and the first thing that they say is didn't like that script.
Yeah.
I guess I'm never going back to this theater company again because, they talked about something that I didn't like. And it's shit. You lost someone. You have to kind of see past that sometimes and be like, oh, you know what? That wasn't for me this time.
Yeah.
But you know what I really liked? I liked that I came to the theater beforehand. They had happy hour where it's just half price drinks before the half hour. I got to enjoy it. There was art on the walls. I got to go and enjoy the lobby and view art.
Yeah.
You know, I do a thing at Theatre Calgary called Tipsy Tuesday, where the first preview of every Theatre Calgary show, first Tuesday, I talk about cocktails.
Yeah.
And I make a cocktail for the bar, and people come early, and I just sit and shake drinks and talk about booze. It's like those experiences that I think that we're trying to create for an audience is to get people into the theater. And it's not just about seeing the show and sitting down and watching theater. It's about coming downtown, maybe hopefully taking transit because it's cheaper than parking.
Yes.
You go for a nice dinner. Maybe you go to the theater a little early. You get half-price drinks. You view the beautiful art. Sometimes there's costumes up in the lobby. Like, there's so much going on. If we can create that experience and make that enjoyable, if the show isn't to their liking, they'll still come back because the experience of going to a theater show was enjoyable.
Yeah. No, and I think there are people who this is sometimes their only chance to hang out. It's like the people who come to my trivia nights. Like, I have people who come, it's the like same group of 6 people who this is their like weekly time they get to see each other.
Yeah.
And they don't usually win trivia, but they come out every single time because they like the drinks and they have fun at the trivia, but they get to see each other and they're like, okay, let's just set aside these couple hours on a Tuesday to go see each other. And I think there's people like that who are like, well, there's this new play, like this is what we do, like me and my best friend, we go see this, and then you can make it a whole experience and then realize that, oh, this is fun, like let's do this all the time.
And that it's accessible. I feel like that's the thing where people get a little bit of a blockage with theater, is like people view theater as like this kind of hierarchical, like elitist sort of like, we're going to the theater. Let's go see
So
our
like,
show.
it's the theater.
The theater. Grab your little binoculars. I think theater isn't that, because I think storytelling is universal, and I think people go, like, I want everyone to come to see theater.
Yeah.
I think making theater accessible is really, really important, so that you can come in your jeans and your Jurassic Park t-shirt that I've seen you in before. I know you like the Jurassic Park, and not feel like you're out of place, or that you're welcome. Like, and everyone should be welcome to come see theater. I know that financially it's not the most viable option all the time, but if it is that, your trivia people come once a week, but how much they're spending on booze and trivia nights and everything else, it's like you could probably spend that once a month and go see a theater show and have an amazing time. And I'm going to shout out, because I'm working for this company. My partner works for this company, and I do really appreciate what Theatre Calgary's done for the community at large, but they are doing a $39 ticket initiative for the next 3 years.
Which is super awesome.
That's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to make theater more accessible for audiences. So people can come, pay $39, because if you're going to go see a movie, like, with popcorn, everything else, like, you're paying more than $39 to go see a movie in IMAX, whatever. Yeah. You go see that, you see real people on stage performing, and for $39, that's all of the orchestra seats for the next 3 years. And it's like, oh, they're making that step to try to make theater less like a barrier for people who don't usually go. Yeah.
And that's super awesome, and I love that. I also love one that you mentioned with Theatre Calgary. And as someone who, again, is creative and likes to figure out ways that I can bring my passions together, how cool is it that you get to do cocktails, fun cocktails involved with theater?
It was a super not last minute, but an add-on to this year. Last year they did Margaritaville. Yeah. Jimmy Buffett's Escape to Margaritaville, which everyone thought was going to be like, oh God, a jukebox musical about Jimmy Buffett music. How are we going to take it? It went off. Like, people went crazy for that show, because the parrot heads, I think is what they're called.
Yes. I know that from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah. This is a good trivia question. Yeah. Jimmy Buffett fans, parrot heads, they went insane for it. And during one of their salon Saturdays last year, they asked me, like, hey, Eric, you work in the booze industry. Do you want to come and talk about margaritas? Yeah. And I did a salon Saturday, and it was packed. Like, in the upper lobby of Theatre Calgary, there was like 140 people, and I was just shaking drinks. People were hooting and hollering and just getting a little drunk, and like, the experience was like, oh shit, people were really into that. So Anna Kummer, who works at Theatre Calgary, kind of pitched it. It was like, why don't we do, and Emma, my partner, she also pitched that's like, why don't we do Tipsy Tuesday, get people in on that first preview and make it a little bit more of an experience where they can come early, get a little tipsy, and in the process get to have a little history with booze, because that's what I love. I love the history of booze. I love alcohol as a whole. I've worked in the industry for like 10 to 14 years or so. It feels kind of like it's something that I've always done as a side hustle with my acting. Yeah. It's like, if I'm not doing this, I'm going to be working at a bar.
I was going to say, it's such a cliche of like actors, musicians, and performers. What else do you do as your like side job to help in between? I work in the industry.
I work in the industry because it's easy for us.
It is.
It's just like, it's like acting at like low percentage, and somehow people are like, you're the best server we've ever had. And it's like, yeah, it's just because I'm just putting on the mask and dancing for grandma here, like, you know. And people are like blown away by servers who are performers, because it's easy for us to just like remember a lot of orders, go around, do the thing. But the booze thing kind of evolved from that Margaritaville experience, and now it's slowly taking off. Go to Tipsy Tuesdays. I'm doing one next week on Tuesday.
Perfect.
As You Like It.
As You Like It. Have you been to Romero Distillery?
I haven't.
Okay, you need to.
Okay.
First of all, the rum is fantastic.
I've questioned the rum. I don't know. I've never had their rum, but I'm like, rum made in Calgary?
Yeah.
Where do you get your sugar cane? How do you make this?
Yeah, so they've got the sugar cane, and then they got proper rum as well, because that takes a lot longer than the sugar cane. Yeah. Both are fantastic, but you can do a tour and tasting. I think it's like $15 a person.
Oh, that's not bad.
And you get to try their 3 sugar canes, plus their like 3 like regular spirits. Plus they do a canned rum and coke.
I've seen that on shelves.
Which is the best canned rum and coke I've ever had. All the other ones are always really crappy, and it sucks because I'm a rum guy, so I never get the canned ones. Like when it was COVID and we'd like go meet in the park, and we're like, I don't want to drink beer, but I'm like, okay, I get nothing. But it's so cool. But you would absolutely love it, because they give you the whole history of like rum running in Alberta. And I did not know so much about it.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh my God. Yeah, you would love it. It's super cool.
Okay.
10 out of 10 recommend. I'm like, I've done it the tour twice for like 2 friends' birthdays. And both times I'm like, why hasn't this been like a CBC TV show yet? Like, interesting. It's very interesting.
Well, I like that this podcast has turned into just us promoting all of the things that we like. Right. It's like Fasting Time with Craig, but also like Theatre Calgary. Also remember Distilling, Dan Parrott. You know, just like basically throwing out like just name dropping to be like, you know, support local.
Yeah, support local. That's all I'm about. But I do. Well, speaking of supporting local, I wanted to know. Do you find, because you're originally from Edmonton, do you find there's a big difference between Theatre Calgary and Theatre Edmonton? Like,
Theatre in Calgary?
Yeah.
Yes, and I love both communities so much. I like Calgary is my home. I've made the choice to live here in Calgary because I do love Calgary. Yeah. I love being close to the mountains. The rivers are beautiful. The summers are amazing.
Oh yeah.
And when I first started working here back in 2012, that's where I got a taste of what the Calgary theater community was like. And they just kind of welcomed me with open arms. And it was just like a breath of fresh air. I'd been working up in Edmonton for like 5 or 6 years at that point, and then continued to work for another little while in Edmonton, while still kind of separating my time between Calgary and Edmonton for about 3 years. And I can't say anything bad about either because I love them both. They're just completely different.
Right.
I found back when I first started working in Calgary that like the level of production that was happening here was magnificent. With ATP, I was here when they were doing Playwrights, which was like this festival that happened, and it was like new plays, and you would go to a Blitz weekend and you'd see 4 plays with the same actors in it and on the same stage, and it was just like theater. And then you have like the High Performance Rodeo, which is like a little bit different from One Yellow Rabbit. They do some really cool stuff, and they bring in a lot of cool artists from all over the world. And then I was doing like little indie forte shows at that point because they were just still up and coming in 2012. And then I would go see a Theatre Calgary show, and then I started working for Theatre Calgary, and just seeing the budgets and the amount of production value in the shows, and then coupled with the amazing, beautiful, warm community that Calgary had, I was kind of like, I was a little awestruck, and I was a little in love. I was in love and was spending time between the two cities because my partner lived down here and I was in Edmonton, so we were back and forth quite a bit, and it just felt so right at the time. But what I love about Edmonton is they have this like, I don't want to say, I think grassroots is the right sort of word, but they have this sort of mentality where you can just do a show and people will come see it. And I think it comes from the Fringe. Have you been to the Edmonton Fringe?
I haven't been to the Edmonton Fringe, no.
You gotta go.
Yeah.
Like just for you as a theater enjoyer, a theater enthusiast, someone who likes theater and is okay with going to see a theater and be like, I don't like that show, and then going to the next thing. But like the beer gardens, the outdoor events, the food, the amount of shows that are happening within the kind of White Ave area and extended is beautiful. And people, when I first started right out of school, it was like you'd get like get your lottery in because it's a lottery for venues.
Yeah.
And then people would be like, okay, I'm doing a Fringe show. Do you want to be a part of it? And like there was one year I was doing 3 Fringe shows, and you're like running across the street after you finish one show, you're running across the street to the next one, and you're putting on your costume and you're stepping on stage, and it has like that vibrancy of like, if you just want to make theater, people will come to it.
Yeah.
Because I think the theater viewing audience of Edmonton will just go out to see a show.
Yeah.
Without really wanting to review it or needing to like know everything about it or waiting for a critic, even though like critics are a dying industry, theater critics, but people will just go to see a show, and that sort of mentality doesn't exist in Calgary. It does, but not as largely as it does in Edmonton. So people just go see it, and the community is warm there too, and it's beautiful. It has smaller companies rather as like Calgary has all of their big companies in the hub of the Arts Commons area, and everybody kind of goes there to work and then leaves. I feel like in Edmonton, it's like a whole bunch of smaller to medium companies. Citadel's downtown. Everything else is kind of in the White Ave area, and we all kind of work with each other, and it's a little bit more mixy matchy. Yeah, it's a different sort of community. I love them both for different reasons.
Nice. Okay, well then, continuing on with the differences or what you love about both, you've also like done filmed stuff, television, like productions. I feel like I already know, and most people would know, but some of the listeners might not know. What's the biggest difference between theater and film?
Oh, you're opening up a can of worms here. There's so many differences. Like I love film, and if I get hired in it and people want to see me on screen, absolutely I'll do it, because you can never say no to that kind of money.
Yeah.
Film money is great. And film in Alberta is phenomenal. Not just like the actors that we have, but the crew.
Oh yeah.
That Calgary has is some of the best crew. That's why people film here. Yes, there's a tax break or whatever, but they come here and then they're blown away with the film crew. The people that work behind the screen are some of the best. And I hope that they continue to work after the strike and everything that's happened, because like they are brilliant human beings doing beautiful work. But when it comes to acting, it's completely different. Like you rehearse for a couple weeks in a theater show and you're working Tuesday through Sunday, 10 to 6, which I think is shocking to some people. They're like, wait, you only get Mondays off? It's like, yeah. Actors get one day off a week and you work 10 to 6. We're working on changing that a little bit, and it depends on what theater company you're working for, but that's the standard, I guess. And you get to work every day for 8 hours, and you get to embody a character and work through bits and stuff, and then you go into the tech process where you have the lights and sound and costumes, then you run it for however long that show runs. In film, you kind of audition, usually at home.
Yeah.
You do a self-tape at home.
Yeah.
You get cast, hopefully. And then you get to set and you're talking to people you've never seen before. You get put in your place of where you need to sit and wait. Then you get called to set. There's maybe a rehearsal. Maybe. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes they'll just be like, okay, you walk in here, you say your line here, and then you're going to walk off. Clearly, I've only ever done bit parts in film and TV. I've done some things that are a bit bigger, but like most of the time, it's just little walk-on
like reporter
bits.
on Heartland.
Oh, reporter on Heartland, season 16, yeah. Where I just walked on, said my lines, and walked off. But it's just it's a different beast. I keep telling myself this, and I think it helps me kind of understand film and TV a little bit better, that it's an editor's medium.
Yes.
Like theater is an actor's sort of like way to just like milk a thing and do the show and like embody a character and live in it. As a film and TV actor, you don't get me wrong, there's amazing film and TV actors out there, and there's people who do it beautifully and really, really well. But I think it's an editor's medium. They're the people that are watching all the camera angles. There's so many other things going on behind that it's more important that, that angle is perfect. It doesn't matter if your body is in a weird contorted way and you're looking over your shoulder saying something. If that doesn't vibe with your character or not, doesn't matter, because it, on screen, looks brilliant. Yeah. And it'll get the point across, even though it's super close up and whatever. But I just find it's like not as an actor, you don't get to live in a moment in the same sort of way. It's like flexing a different muscle.
Right. And you got to be in a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Oh, you love Christmas, don't you? And I just keep doing these Christmas things. Yes, I was in a Hallmark Christmas
You're like, well, if anything else, Craig will see this.
Did you watch it?
I did watch as much as I could find of it. Yes. So I did see you in it.
Yes, it was, I mean, Hallmark's kind of this weird, like you can't, I've never watched the whole thing. I've watched clips that my friends have like sent me on like, they're like, look, you're on a thing. But I don't have the Hallmark channel. I don't have a TV.
Yeah. And then occasionally they pop up on like Prime or something like that too. Like, so I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. So like, I don't really know how to break the barrier of watching a Hallmark channel. Yeah. I don't really want to, but I've never seen Meet Me at Christmas. But thanks for watching.
You're welcome.
Thanks for supporting the dead ex-husband in flashbacks. That's who I played. But that was COVID times.
Yeah.
Was it COVID times?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like 2021?
Maybe it came out in 2021. But it was right before. I'm trying to remember now. I can't remember. I have to go back in my taxes and figure that out.
Yeah. Ooh. No, that's
we're not talking about taxes on the podcast.
No. So when you get, so we talked about this role that was like kind of made for you and like adjusted for you. Sure. There's that, and like a new character that you can't watch anything else of, but then you're playing a character in a play that has a history, been around forever. Do you watch or read anything like to get into that character, or do you want to put a fresh take on this character?
How do you mean?
Like if it's for example,
I love an example.
I have a review that I found when I was Googling you.
Oh no, don't Google me.
So it's from 2015, Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, yeah.
They said you radiate charisma and convincingly displays the sort of pure romantic obsession that only a 14-year-old guy in love for the first time could possibly possess, which they basically raved about you in this review.
Kind of review.
But
nice.
So yeah, you have Romeo, who's probably Romeo and Juliet, two of the most well-known characters of all time.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you approach a character who has been around before?
Good question. And other people have done it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be too connected to the Romeo and Juliet back in 2015. I worked really hard for that role. I knew the director, and at that point, no one had ever seen me do any Shakespeare. I hadn't really done any Shakespeare. I had a small bit part in Romeo and Juliet at the Citadel back in 2013, I think. But no one had ever seen me in Calgary do Shakespeare. People kind of view me as a musical theater actor here in Calgary, and it's kind of hard to get out of that pigeonhole sometimes. But I worked really hard because I knew the director and I knew who was going to be in it, and I was like, I really want to be Romeo. I want to prove that I can do this. And I basically just like emailed the director. I was like, you're going to want me as Romeo. I'm auditioning for you. It's like, well, you haven't done auditions yet. I was like, you're going to cast me. I really just forced my hand and really went in there, did the audition, got offered it on the spot, which was great. I've never had that happen before. Wow. Came in super prepared. But going into it, I think I had a summer off before diving into it. And right after, like 2 days after, my partner and I, we moved to New Zealand for a year. So it was like the last show that I was going to do before we moved away. So like I spent the summer just like learning the text, and I worked so hard not to watch like the Leonardo DiCaprio version or like all the other versions of Romeo and Juliet that are out there.
Yeah.
I remember them and I watched them and I enjoy those versions, but like, it's a good question. I think when you, especially Shakespeare, I have some feelings about Shakespeare. We don't need to get into that because that's a longer podcast. But at that time, I really, really wanted to do Shakespeare to prove to myself that I could do it and to prove to the Calgary community that I could do it. And I worked really hard on all the text and really dug into the script. So by the time I was there for first day, I was like, I knew exactly what I was saying. But I have also know when you read the text of Romeo and Juliet, Romeo's really whiny.
Yeah.
Like he's just like a little whiny
yeah.
boy. And I wanted so hard to be like, I'm going to make my Romeo piney, not whiny. I'm going to make my Romeo like believable and not annoying and like really care for the love that he has for Juliet is so real. And I think that's what differentiated myself in that regard. Not to say that everyone who's done it before has done a whiny Romeo. It's just written in a way that is kind of like, if not directed or steered the right way, Romeo can come off a little whiny.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember reading Romeo and Juliet in school and knowing I was an old person when I'm reading and going, these teenagers are fucking stupid. And they're like my age or whatever. I'm like, fuck these guys. Like, why are we rooting for them? Why is this a whole... Of course they die at the end. They're stupid.
Yeah, they're stupid little kids just like falling in love after meeting each other for the first time. Like it just... I work... I mean, Shakespeare has had so many versions of every show done all the time. So it's like you have to kind of concentrate on the words rather than concentrating on someone else's idea of that character. And that's what makes it fun. And I think what makes Shakespeare continue to happen and why people still go to see Shakespeare shows. But when you're embodying a character that has been around a lot, I like to separate myself from watching other things and watching other actors perform those roles, because I think that disconnect is helpful. It makes you realize things for yourself rather than going like, oh, they realized that there. Okay. And then you kind of like, that's your challenge. You're trying to do what they did. Yeah. And it's less of mimicry or trying to do what other people did and trying to embody that character yourself, which is arguably the super most fun thing about acting, is embodying a character and like feeling those feelings and the catharsis that happens with that as well as you're performing.
Well, right before COVID, like literally right before COVID, I was in California Suite, which is a great play and great movie that came out in the 70s.
I don't know it.
Oh, it's Neil Simon's California Suite.
Okay.
He had a few ones that took place at a hotel, and this one is a 4-act play, all with different characters staying in the suite, and the whole act is about these couples and relationships. So there was 4 of us, and we played multiple roles in it. So I was in 2 scenes. One, me and my wife were on our trip with our best friends, but it's gotten to the point where we can't take each other anymore, and we get in this huge fight and like physical, like attacking each other. The other one, I played a married guy who came out to California for my nephew's bar mitzvah, and I came out before my wife did, and I got a prostitute.
Okay.
And I wake up next to her in bed and she's passed out. And then my wife shows up so that I'm trying to hide this prostitute.
You performed in this?
I performed in this.
Where?
This was at oh God, where did we perform it? Pump House Theater.
What company?
It was, what company was it? Oh my God, why am I blanking? What was
This
it?
wasn't on my radar. I want to.
I'm gonna figure this out 1 second.
Yeah.
But it was why am I like blanking on it? But it was super fun, and I was
And you acted
thrilled.
in this in 20.
Simply Theater. This was Simply Theater 2020. Our show was March 6th to March 14th.
Oh no.
So every single night was us coming to the theater. It was also minus like 40 and a blizzard happening.
Mm-hmm.
So every night we'd come to the theater being like, is this it? Are we going to do our whole run?
Yeah, but leading up to that time too, like you're kind of like
Yeah.
everything's fine, but you're like hearing about things that are gonna potentially come down the line, and you're like, no, we can still keep doing the
Yeah,
show.
it was like, oh, we're good.
Were
We got
people
this.
coming?
People were coming. We had people right up until the last one. The my partner who played the prostitute, she was like, she had a bad cough, and like she's like it's not COVID, and like, but I had to be underneath covers with her, like.
Yeah, weird, scary times.
It was weird.
Scary times. Did you close early?
We managed to do the whole run. So March 14th, and then which was the Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So we were one of the last performances to happen in Calgary, if not.
You might have been the last.
We might have been the last because I don't think there was a lot going on at that point.
We
But
were gonna open on the 17th. We were gonna have previews on the 17th and open on the 19th, I think,
Yeah.
for a show I was doing, and we did our final dress rehearsal on the 13th. And the person who was running the theater was like, we kind of have to stop. So we were like, did our final dress rehearsal. We're in that weird sort of era where we were all scared about like getting too close, but also like we had to do the show, and we were only really with each other. So we filmed it. I think we did an archival of it. It was called The Other Josh Cohen.
oh, I remember seeing you post about that. Yeah.
Very Neil Diamond forward, like super goofy. All the cast played instruments. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, people came on my podcast to promote it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who? Was it Chris?
No.
No.
Melissa
Yeah.
and who else? But we had people, and we were promoting it. I think we released the episode like a week before, being like, "Come out and see
Yeah,
it." So
and that was the
Yeah.
last show when we all kind of just like full set, full costume, did our last dress rehearsal, and we're like, see ya whenever we see
yeah,
ya.
it was the weirdest experience. It was so super fun though, but like I knew the movie California Suite, and I had watched it before.
Mm-hmm.
And my one character, the one who has to hide the passed out prostitute from his wife, was played by Walter Matthau, who's just like great. Dennis the Menace, Grumpy Old Man, The Odd Couple, Bad News Bears, like the original. Like he's got such a way about him and his performance.
Very
So
distinct.
I had watched it well before I'd ever like audition, and knew that as soon as I started the audition process, I was like, I can't, because I don't want to.
You don't want to go into that realm. You
Yeah.
don't want
I
to do
know.
what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was.
It is difficult, and it's like it seems like a easier way to kind of get things that you may not get, and like, but I think the beauty of having different directors and different productions, it's like you never like, especially if you're working with a director that you trust implicitly, like. In particular, like Peter Hinton Davis, who did The Who's Belong to the Deer, is like, I would trust Peter with my life. Like him as a director is a beautiful room. He creates so much space, and there's room for failure and exploration and all of that. So that like when you're creating a character from scratch, you have the opportunities are endless. You can do whatever you want. But doing a show where those characters have already existed, there has to be some sort of parameters of like, okay, this character was written this way, and there's been play analysis and all that other stuff of like these characters. And so it's interesting, but if you trust your director to kind of guide you in a way to make sure that what you are putting out on stage is what they want, and ultimately what the audience sees and makes them feel a certain way, you're doing the job correctly.
And I feel like we go back to that difference between theater and film, because again, you have the time in theater to really workshop and try these things, whereas you film, you usually don't. And maybe you have that director who allows it, or you're big enough, you think of people like Robin Williams, who was allowed to do like 37 scenes because let's just see what he can do. Let's fun he can, just let him
let's
rip.
Open it up and just like have some fun. We're filming and we'll take one of the takes.
But if you're somebody who, whether it's a main role, supporting role, but like sometimes you just only have 4 days to come in and film your whole part, because that's the other thing with film, is that even if you're in the project the whole time
is money.
It doesn't matter like when they film it, and suddenly you have to be at the most heightened emotional moment on day one. And then the rest of the shoot is easy.
And you're like coming into it. I shot a Lifetime movie called Murder Runs in the Family. You can catch it on the Lifetime Network. And it's like a movie of the week.
And
I had a fairly large role in it, but like, we were getting to this big emotional part near the end. I won't give away too much, but like it required me and my acting partner to like really just like go at it. And we were like rehearsing it without the director because they were setting up the shots or whatever. And it was late at night. It was like 3 a.m. It was a night shoot. And we're just like, we're getting it. We're getting emotionally driven to do this scene. They set up the camera. We're prepped. We're ready. We're in our positions. We go our marks. We do a rough sort of rehearsal of the whole scene. And we're like living in that space. We're kind of getting our breath and bodies ready to emotionally get to that place to be vulnerable and hopefully act well on screen. And we do 2 lines and then it's like cut, and then we do it again and it's cut, and they were doing it piece by piece by piece. So like it totally it required so much brain work to try to like piece together these emotional moments that you had been rehearsing in your body. And we were both like, I come from theater and the other actor had done a lot of film or some film, and we were just like, okay, we're ready, let's emotionally dive in. But every time you're cut, it takes another 15 to 20 minutes to set up the next shot, and you're like, you have all this energy, it has nowhere to go, and I can't actually like, I understand why people go, you hear about people, I don't believe in method acting, but people go method actor because you have to kind of be present in that moment. But acting is acting. You should just be able to act, in my opinion. Come at me, people.
I support this.
Come at me, method actors. But I found it super difficult because I had this idea in my mind as a theater actor of how to get emotionally to where I needed to be to finish the scene. But I got through 3 lines before we had to cut and then do my close-up stuff, and then like cut, and then we changed it up, and then we did some physical like fighting stuff. It just was so disconnected that the through line in my brain felt lost. I watched that one, and it came across as fine. But in the moment that day when you're filming it, it felt so like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I feel kind of like I'm a bad actor.
Because theater, you have to keep it the whole time, even if someone didn't silence their phone in the audience and the phone's ringing. You still need to, you can't just, okay, let's retake this.
Can we start again? Can you shut off your phone and can we start this again? Back to once. Here we go. It doesn't work like that. No. And I think that's what I love about theater. Like, I will never, people are like, do you like film or TV or theater better? It's like, I love theater. Because you get to live in that role for 2-3 hours. Sometimes 3-hour shows are long, but like, you get to live in that world for this beautiful amount of time. No show is ever the same. There's going to be moments and things that are different every night, and it's based on your reaction. It's just such a beautiful art form that I fear sometimes we're losing because people don't want to sit in a theater and watch people act all the time, and because of what we said earlier about the whole sort of trying to make theater more accessible so people can go and just watch stories on stage. But as an actor, it's some of the most alive I felt in my life as a human being, is being on stage and doing some of that beautiful performing, No,
and I love it. I hope more people will go see theater, like because it's just so much fun. And I'm wondering if you having like a music background, being a singer, helps you learn your lines a little easier. Like, just you're learning a song. It's got that rhythm to it, and it's kind of broken down how you can easily, much like Shakespeare.
Yeah. Craig, are you asking me how do I learn all those lines? Are you asking the age-old question?
How do you learn all those
lines? Someone who's
lines?
acted themselves is asking on a podcast the question that every person has. How do you learn all those lines?
I'm thinking that you learn them better than I do because you have this, like, I don't know.
How do you learn all those lines?
How do I learn all those lines? A lot of repetitiveness.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's it. Like, people will ask, and you're like, you just do. But when you are rehearsing for 3 to 4 weeks, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, you're gonna memorize stuff. And once you're up on your feet, and you're like, I find it really hard to memorize just by sitting and looking at a page and just going like memorizing stuff. I'm doing that right now, and it's a little bit difficult for me. I need to be up because once you get the physicality and your muscle memory of walking over and saying your lines here and like finding the world that you're living in, that's when things start to stick because you're like you're moving with words rather than just like trying to dedicate words to brain.
Yep.
It's like your body is smarter than you think, and once you start moving and your acting is motivated by something, someone says something to you and that you have lines, the general idea and your action of what you want to do in that line. If you're in that moment and you're there and your body does a thing, like it's all connected.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a full body sort of experience for memorization, which is a very long way to describe memorizing after a show when someone's like, how do you memorize all that lines? It's like, well, let me tell you, it's a rehearsal process.
Yeah.
And, but I truly like getting up on your feet and rehearsing just like helps the memorization process for me. Not everybody is like that. Everybody has their own techniques and skills with that kind of stuff. But for me, like getting up on my feet, working the blocking and feeling motivated with reaction rather than just like your line, my line, your line, my line, my line. It's easier for me to just like be in that world and actually listen to the other person acting and have worked on those lines, but reacting to what they say with what I got already kind of in my memory bank.
Yeah, I have this big monologue in California Suite where I'm yelling at my friend about the problems that we've had on this trip, and I was moving around a lot, and I had to, and like, but that's the only way I could remember certain parts. Is like, all right, now I'm over here talking about this thing. Like,
and you find those connections too as an actor, right? Where you're like, I'm sitting here at Craig's kitchen table, holding a pineapple whip candle, and I know that like when I get here, this is where I break into my big monologue.
Yeah.
Why? XYZ. You do all that work beforehand, but it's just that's the kind of connection where you stated it perfectly.
Yeah.
It's like I needed to walk around in that moment, and I was connected to certain landmarks that gave me that ability to remember the next part.
Yeah, I think, what's funny is I've seen that happen in movies, but and these people are clearly like, and sure enough, you look at it afterwards and you're like, oh yeah, they've done a bunch of theater and everything, and you can see that, but it doesn't always make sense on, like, for some reason it doesn't work on film. Like,
it doesn't.
Because and people, of course, nowadays, everyone's immediately going online and like, what does this meaning mean? Like, well, no, they don't, but it's such a theater thing.
Yes, it truly is. And like, I think back to all the theater I've done, and like, I could probably do some Romeo and Juliet quotes. I'm not going to, but like, because those words live so, because you worked on them and you've lived in that world for so long that like they live in your brain. I couldn't tell you any lines that I've ever said in any film and TV thing because it's so fast. You never get to rehearse it really. And then you go on set, you say those lines, and then it's filmed, and then it's done. It's forever captured in that one moment of Heartland where I ask a question, as a reporter. But I could not tell you what I said or what I was trying to portray in that moment because it was the lines were the last thing on my mind. on that day.
Right.
You know, and they don't stick in the same way. When you're told to stay in your one spot, you have half an inch on either side of your shoulders to move. So don't move too much. And also don't tilt your head that way and look a little bit more confused. It's like that's the direction you get sometimes, and you're like, okay, here goes. And then that's forever encaptured on film, and you're like, shit, I did that on the day? That's what I look like? In my brain I look so cool, but no, I guess that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was interviewed for Global for Pride and like trivia and events, and I was like wanting to take a screenshot to like post, and the first screenshot I took, I was like, "Oh God, no!" I was like, "Is that what I'm doing?"
That's what my face looks like.
No,
I mean, it's going to be hard for me to maybe listen back on this because like it's the same thing with your voice. Yeah. You know, like I don't like the way my voice sounds. No one really does.
No.
I don't watch Meet Me at Christmas because I kind of know what I did on the day, and I'm not really interested in watching myself a lot. And I think that's what I like about theater, is that like it lives in that beautiful free moment of everyone in that room watching the same thing, but that only happened once.
Yeah,
you don't get to see that even though it's the same show every night, it's different.
Yeah,
as well, there's different moments. So
that's nice. I like that. All right, so we're about 2 months into the year.
Yeah,
what does 2024 hold for you, Eric?
Right now, Greg, it's all swing work, and it's a new thing that's happening because of the pandemic and sickness in theater. Actors don't get sick days, or we do, but we've never really in the past it's been like the show must go on. You go on sick. Now that's kind of a thing of the past. We have to kind of navigate that. So currently, right now, I am swinging four roles in As You Like It at Theatre Calgary. I'm understudying. It was a last minute call, and I'm learning 4 different characters, and hopefully never have to go on.
Yeah.
And everyone stays healthy and safe, and I don't have to go on. But that's what I'm doing, and then I'm swinging another show at the end of the year that I can't talk about right now. But once it's out there, you can tell people. But I'm understudying a lot, which is a new thing.
Yeah.
I work in a bar. This is all things that are coming up. But ultimately, I think I want to keep playing music more. I'm trying to find my feet and maybe try to get some people together to start a band. My pandemic projects were learning banjo and mandolin. So that was my goal. And I've gotten to a point where I can like play along with people, but I'm no like amazing banjo or mandolin player, but I can play to a bluegrass riff and have a good time. But I want to focus on music. I've given myself the kind of challenge to write more this year and write more music for myself, because it's something that's brought me so much joy over the last couple of years, especially when we were all locked inside. It's like, okay, what do I got to do to be creative?
Yeah.
Because I can't perform. I gotta play music somehow. So that's kind of my goal, is to be doing more music. I'm swinging a lot. Maybe I'm auditioning for things, and maybe I'll try to do some of that. Hopefully film and TV comes back, because it hasn't really bounced back in the way that I think we were all thinking.
Right.
But 2 months into the year at this point, I'm just trying to, admittedly, it started a bit kind of like, you know, I was just working in the restaurants in January slow, and it's like, what am I doing? What's keeping us busy? How are we being creative? So I'm hoping that moving forward, I can just like enjoy the things that I like to do outside of theater for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's music. That's great.
Yeah.
If that means hanging out with pals and drinking beers, that's great. You know, like that kind of just enjoying things without having that pressure of I'm trying to take the pressure off of trying to be gainfully employed as an actor all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's a hard thing that doesn't really exist anymore.
No.
You know?
And it can get very stressful.
It can.
And it's so important, I think, all of us creative people, whether it's actors, singers, just performers, drag queens, you need to find that you need to do that hustling, but you also need to take those moments. And like when I have these days off, I have friends that are like, no, but Craig, you can just stay on your couch and watch movies, or you can just go out for beers or go for a walk with your friend. You don't have to do something involving your career.
Yes, yeah. You don't have to do trivia
Yeah.
every day. You're doing more trivia research. Like you can take a break. Is today your day off?
We'll see.
I mean, you're recording a podcast.
Yeah,
so
I'm recording a podcast.
we're passing time.
We're passing time.
This is not
I've got to prep for a couple trivia nights coming up this week, but
yeah. I need to come. I should come to one of your trivia nights.
should.
Yeah.
You should.
Where are they? Tell me all about them.
every Tuesday at Highline.
Yeah.
Except for when you're going to Tipsy Tuesday.
Unless you're going to Tipsy Tuesday
Yeah.
next Tuesday at Theatre Calgary and listen to me chat.
I do Ball Screw Bills every other Wednesday.
Okay.
And then Cabin, like every other Monday, I'm there for Name That Tune, which is super fun. And I
Name That Tune.
love Name That Tune. Cabin's such a great place. Mm-hmm. And of course, Bingo at Bourne. Bourne is great, which is, you've come to perform at Bourne. You're so, and this is why I'm so glad to hear that you want to sing more and do more, because you're such a good singer.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
I was so happy that you came and performed at Bourne. And
that was such a beautiful night. I love that. That was so much fun.
It was such a great night.
It was a great night with great peeps, and that was pandemic-y times.
Pandemic-y time.
Yeah.
We're there out on the patio.
Yeah, we were outside. That
outside.
Was the big thing,
and it was all queer performers, and it was just such a great night. And you sang some beautiful covers, and then you sang some like fun fantasy.
Yeah. Okay, good memory. That was years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did sing some songs that I wrote for a D&D musical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which there's songs of yours online.
Stop Googling me, Craig. Stop.
I will never stop Googling you.
Stop Googling
Till
me.
that restraining order comes out.
This is the creepy Secret Santa song.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some songs on Spotify for that musical that I wrote.
Yeah.
I wrote some songs for a musical that I think still is going and doing its own thing. I don't think it's really as much of a trying to be a stage musical anymore as it is this like online world, D&D world.
Yeah.
That my buddy Tori has created, and has done a beautiful job doing that.
There's just so many great, cool things, and it is nice that there's options for online still for people who aren't comfortable going. I have no, I like when I go see plays and I see people in the audience still going out but wearing masks. I'm like, props to you. Yeah. Good for you for still coming out and supporting. There's so many great things. So I want to ask you, this is what I ask all my guests as I start to wind up. What's awesome?
What's awesome? You're awesome. You're awesome.
That's what I like to hear.
This is awesome. I what's awesome just in general?
Yeah.
For me, I think awesome is something that is you know what? I'm gonna say Calgary is awesome.
Nice.
I am constantly surprised with how beautiful it is here. And I'm constantly surprised, I'm doing a show right now where everyone is from out of town and they're kind of in awe of Calgary in their own way. And I think Alberta and Calgary are beautiful places to live. We're not going to get into the politics of this province, not on this podcast.
Nope.
But I think as a place to set up our home, I really find Calgary a beautiful place full of beautiful art. And I find Calgary pretty awesome. And included in that is Craig, who lives in Calgary. Who's awesome.
You're awesome.
You're awesome.
You're super awesome. I'm so happy that we could get you on the podcast.
Thank you. Has this been an hour?
I think so.
Are we doing it? There's
Yeah, it's been probably just over an hour now.
Holy crap. I mean, an hour flies when you're chatting about things.
Yeah.
I chatted a lot. Sorry about that.
No, I love it. It's fantastic. It's better than having a guest that I have to pull teeth.
Fair enough.
It's okay, that was a good 20 minutes. Wow, now what?
Yeah, don't get me to talk. I'll keep talking. I'll keep blabbing. You want to do another hour, Craig? Here we go. Let me talk about this pineapple whipped candle.
It smells like the pineapple Dole Whips from Disneyland.
It does. It does.
It's this company that they create these candles based off of Disney smells. I think there's a Pirates of the Caribbean smell. Like, yeah, that's
Smells like dirty pirate.
no. There's a smell though. If you know it,
I don't think I do.
yeah, the ride has a smell to it,
Okay.
and every now and then somebody like I'll just be like, oh, I just smell pirates, and I will say that, and people will either go what, and others will go, oh my god, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my god, I just smelled pirates.
Yeah.
What a keen sense.
Yeah.
What's your sixth sense? I can smell pirates
I can smell pirates
from a mile away.
Yeah.
I know where they are.
Seems like a gay superpower.
Yeah, truly. It's like, oh, what do you do? What's your superpower? I smell pirates.
I smell pirates.
Yeah. In this day and age, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. And I've put it into a candle and I'm selling it.
This is a great ending to this. I love
pirates,
this.
Everybody.
Smell pirates. Eric, thank you again so much for being
Thank you,
here.
Greg. This is wonderful. This is so much fun.
Check out Eric, like, in wherever he may pop up, because you never know.
Google me, I guess.
Google him. You'll find him. Thank you all so much for being here today, listening. Thank you, Eric, for passing time with me.
Thank you for passing time with me, Greg.
Thank you, everybody, for passing time with me, and we'll chat soon.